getting ready to celebrate President's Day here in the U.S. And I want to read to you a modernized version of the Gettysburg Address in honor of Lincoln's birthday and to address some of the issues that we're facing today in America. 15 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Soon we will enter a civil war to prove whether this nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We dedicate our efforts to those who gave our lives so that our nation might live. It altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this country, not quite yet. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled to protect our Constitution, our liberties, and our freedom, have consecrated this land and are consecrating it every day, far above our poor power to add or detract to this. The world will little note nor long remember what I say here, but it can never forget what they did for us, and we should never forget. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work for which they who fought to preserve our nation have thus far so nobly advanced. It's rather for us to be dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these our honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which so many gave their last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that the dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, or for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Now I say that with apologies to Abraham Lincoln. But that's what we're dealing with. This is a modernized version of President Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. Few people know that this address was made up of random notes jotted down here and there and on scrap paper and then compiled together. I will break away from this and tell you thank you for joining us in our second presentation from Critical Mass Awareness. What we're talking about today is hatred. Hatred and the dangers of not maintaining eternal vigilance. Let me take a few minutes to explain myself. My name is Dean Fouquet. I am retired law enforcement. I am retired military. My body has gotten old, and my ability to, go out and fight in the streets or go to battle for this is that's going to be tested, I'm sure. But my brain is not retired, and my brain is active. And so what we're trying to do is it's critical that we make the masses aware of what's going on in this country. I am not talking to you like-minded patriots, you like-minded believers in the Second Amendment in the Constitution. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're listening. I'm glad you're supporting us, okay? I am talking to the masses that maybe are sitting on the fence or are not aware of what's going on. Tell you a little about myself. To describe myself is not an easy task. It always teeters between who I perceive myself to be and what I strive to be and who I am in real life. Okay? I had a troubled childhood. I was a high school dropout, got several college degrees with high honors, retired from the Coast Guard, retired law enforcement, pretty much a student of life. Grandfather, great-grandfather, and a friend to any kid. I guess if I was to write my own autobiography, I would list myself as a humorist, a philosopher, a common sense advocate, a writer, a journalist, a broadcaster, a historian. I'm a student of the integrity of the working people. I'm a constitutionalist, a patriot, a champion of wit and wisdom, a lecturer, a wannabe writer, a novelist, That's pending. I'll let you know how that works out. An anti-drug advocate, an entrepreneur, and an inventor. Others, whose name I won't mention, my son, describes me as a cantankerous curmudgeon. And I had to look the words up, but basically he's right. I'm opinionated. I'm devoid of a filter. I am completely devoid of political correctness. I'm friendly, I'm funny, I'm irreverent, I'm often satirical, and I'm always eager to deflate the pretentious. Okay? Now, I'm neither a Republican nor a Democrat. I am a voice of a quintessential American constitutionalist. And there's no waiver in that. Okay? I am a diehard constitutionalist. Now, if you don't know me, and if you're just joining and getting to have to endure me, let me explain that you're going to view some of my editorial content as hateful or malicious. That's not my purpose. And I'm sorry if you get butthurt. I'm over it. Okay? My purpose is to provoke thought, pose questions, expose falsehoods, and give you the information so you can look at all sides of an issue. In addition, my posts are designed for your diversion and the merriment of the listener or viewer, okay? It's a message we all need to hear. That's the end of the introduction. Nice to meet you. What I'm going to talk to you today about the price of hate and the danger of lapsed vigilance. Hitler was a hater. Hitler had a medical condition which caused him psychological problems, which caused him to hate at the level that he hated. Okay? It was a medical condition. Not making excuses for him, wouldn't do that. But he hated for a psychological reason. And much of what he does was psychological. Truthfully, in our world where everything is excused because it's your parents' fault or somebody's fault and everything, if Hitler would be caught today and be put on trial today with what we know about him and his psychological makeup, chances are he would not get the death penalty for all that he did. Because psychologically, there's an argument that could be made with the more liberal people that he was not responsible. And that should scare you right there. I got to looking at Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, and I don't want you to be misled by those who are wanting to rewrite history and hide our historical blemishes, because these are reminders of where we come from. Some people want to hide the historical problems that we had because it hurts their feelings. I don't mind if you're offended by our history, but I really don't care either, okay? Despite what you are told, the Civil War was not about slavery. It was about states' rights and the rights of states to determine their future and not the federal government. Now, that was the start of the war. Then as the war ran on and got closer to the election or re-election of Lincoln, he was kind of falling down in the poll. The American people began to get weary of the battle and opted to accept any compromise or terms they could get in conflict, which is kind of what the Democrats are doing today on the wall. They're just wearing you down, okay? Lincoln was failing in the polls, so somebody came up with the Emancipation Proclamation, which shifted the conflict from being that of states' rights to that being of slavery, and all of a sudden, there was a renewed interest in the war and freeing the slaves, because, quite frankly, giving the states their rights really wasn't a big deal, you know. Now look at this. There was a small group of people who didn't want to accept that the South lost. Gee, Democrats, you lost, okay? The South had the same problem. They just couldn't get over the fact they lost and everything. And Lincoln was killed because of the level of hate that people had. Mainly one person or a group of conspirators. But think about this. Think about this. What if? What if you could go back in time? Okay? Now, if I had a time machine, I'd go back and give Obama's dad a condom. Don't think he'd use it, but I'd give it to him, you know? And kind of explain why we need him to put that on. But I would go back in time to stop James Wilkes Booth from killing Lincoln. Now, Lincoln was killed, history was changed. we set aside days to honor the fact that history was changed by these lives. What if Lincoln had not been killed? What if he'd not been shot? What if somebody had stopped James Wilkes Booth and Lincoln would have continued? Well, if you studied Lincoln and you understand Lincoln's life, he probably would have healed the wounds of the Civil War faster than they were healed. You know, I mean, it took, well, I think some places were still working on those wounds. And some people are keeping them open and throwing salt in them. America would have grown to be a world power much faster, and the chances are we would have been strong enough to stop World War I and World War II from ever happening. We were moving at an incredible pace. The reason America did not get to that point in time to stop those wars was because of one man's hatred. Nowadays, hatreds for American values and liberties and freedoms are causing us to be under siege from within our own nation. Our president is hated and has his life threatened daily simply for wanting to, say it with me, make America great again. This is not a conflict that's going to take place in another country. This is going to happen in your own back and front yard. And you have no choice. You have to choose one side or the other. There is no middle ground in this. You need to either choose to destroy America as you know it, or get out and roll around in the mud and the blood and the beer. Now, I'm old, but I guarantee you I'm going to give an account of myself, because in this conflict, nobody's going to be able to sit on the sidelines. You need to become aware and get ready to defend your beliefs, whatever you believe. But the only thing you need to win this battle and save America is to have the heart of a patriot. I want to thank you. Stay tuned in for more. As we go, we're going to get better. This is the first round. Like I said, I have a face for radio, but this is weird being on camera. Hope you have a wonderful afternoon, and thanks for tuning in.